Okay. Despite Casper's assurances that Jaden would do everything in his power to protect the king, Sarah worried it wouldn't be enough. If the king dies while in the ambassadorial halls, the resulting riots will threaten everyone who lived here. Sarah entered her Rothko study and found it empty. The time stone on the wall said it was nearly time for lunch. Oh my goodness, all this running around trying to convince someone to do something about the assassination has made me lose track of time. Her Rothko would be in the parlor. I speak with him before they announce the midday meal. Pity that there isn't any shortcut to the dining room. Several moments later, she heard laughter coming from the parlor. If he was entertaining guests, she would have a beast of a time pulling away without causing a scene. Her Rothko's guardian, Anton, stood at the front of the door. His curved saber was sheathed, but he didn't need it to be intimidating. Anton looked at Sihara and then shot a questioning look at his younger brother, Mikhail. Your duties include protecting the Taja's reputation. Anton would not rebuke her directly, so Mikhail had to bear the brunt of his criticism. Mikhail replied stiffly, the wedding preparations are keeping her busy. I don't look that bad, do I? Sarah stepped into the small washroom and made a face at her reflection. She had to take out the few remaining pins and let her in her hair and opted for a much simpler updo. Her rouge was a lost cause, so she just washed it all off. Anton stepped aside. You should not let everyone push you to work too hard, Taja. Ha! If only he knew. Sarah smiled faintly. Some days it just can't be helped. Inside the parlor, the heavy purple curtains were drawn aside to let the light from the overcast day in. Conserving the torches and their fuel had become second nature by now. Roxanne, Claudia, and Elise sat as far away from the fire as they could while still engaging her Majka and Lady Vivica in light conversation. Her Falco and the Lord Ambassador were locked in a private discussion. Sarah groaned inwardly. I'll have to catch him after lunch. Sebastian locked eyes with her across the room, and an icy chill rushed through her. They had not spoken since the incident in the banquet hall. Her father assured her Sebastian regretted his harsh words, but that did not soothe the ache of losing someone who loved her for who she was, not for her appearance or passing similarities to her cousin, even if they never existed. Don't just stand there. Come warm up. Hermashka patted the spot on the couch next to her. What have you been up to this morning? Sarah offered a mirthless smile. Visiting with friends? Passing on messages. Did you see what Jaden bought me at the festival? Claudia preened, turning her head to and fro to catch the light with her jeweled hair net. She looked much older than her 18 years. Sarah leaned in conspiratorially. Don't tell Jaden I told you, but Lady Josephine had a hand in that. Don't be silly. We already wrangled the full story out of him. Roxanne laughed. I really do love the cloak. Pity it's too warm inside to wear it. The butler opened the door. Everyone, if you would please make your way to the dining room, lunch will be served. In the dining room, 3 tables were set out in the tradition of each of the countries. Sarah had never once sat down to eat at the Animalian dining table. No one had, not in 100 years. She imagined the leather bags filled with feathers would crack from the years of disuse. Next stood the wooden mineralite table carved with gentle curves and feet ending in Nimir paws. Standing like soldiers at the ready, the lattice-backed chairs brought to mind long dinners spent shifting in those uncomfortable seats. In contrast, the round elementary stone table wore a simple linen cloth, and their sun-baked clay cookware was far more economical than the mineralite's glass dishes. They did not have a place for a favorite head of the household, and left no special place at his right or left. You could sit anywhere you pleased without fear of reprisal. Sarah seated herself cross-legged on the soft padding served for seats around the low table. Elise tried to copy Sarah's posture and asked in a whisper, Is this how you always eat, Taja Sahara? This seating is customary in the Vindish Republic, where my father was from. Sarah replied. She had seen little of Elise since they had sent her to the Mount Rajvik boarding school. She would likely continue her formal education after the autumn break. Children did not dine with the Lord Ambassador or Taj, which meant that Eliza had turned 13 while she wasn't looking. I feel so old now. Claudia smiled maternally at her younger Seska. This is Eliza's first taste of Indish food. Roxanne unfolded her napkin and placed it in her lap. Don't worry, we'll warn you what foods to avoid your first time. Eliza's eyes widened in apprehension. Sarah tried to suppress her laughter and failed. No, nothing like that. Our food is just much spicier than you're used to. Sebastian found a way to sit at the table with his restricting Italian Republic suit. Well, once you get used to it, everything else seems bland and tasteless. Although the difference will be much sharper for you since you're used to the standardized mineral diet. I cannot be comfortable. I should have my lady in waiting send him a suit from Vindish or Balor. That would be much more comfortable. The footman filled small bowls with water to allow each of the highborn nobles to clean their hands before the meal. When Elise washed her hands, she somehow spilled half the water on her dress. Sarah offered her a napkin under the table. Roxanne mouthed a thank you. She could get used to having a younger girl around. She always had wanted a little Seska. The servants brought lunch out in an orderly fashion, from the flat purple bread to the colorful vegetables with spicy cream sauce. It was enough to make a mineralite faint. Maybe she'd ask the cooks to prepare their meal tomorrow, for Elise's sake. Sebastian sipped his tea. He made a face of disgust and swallowed with difficulty. Is something wrong, Sebastian? Sihara asked. Did someone poison him, just like those mineralite nobles before the festival? No, it just needs more sugar and cream. Sebastian chuckled in embarrassment. He motioned for the nearest server to come over. It's just a very strong tea. Eliza tried to stifle her giggles. I guess you aren't used to everything, are you, Sihara? Sebastian held his tongue, though it apparently cost him a great deal of self-control. His glare spoke fathoms of the thoughts running through his head. Jaden burst into the dining room from the mineralite wing. He avoided Sarah's eye and sat down beside Claudia. Sorry, I'm late. I had a urgent letter to send. Did you hear about Victoria's marriage to the knight? Elise poked her plate with her purple flatbread. Sarah's heart raced at the mention of her dear friend. She caught her Frothco's eye and noticed a similar, blanched expression as the one she must be wearing. Did he already know about the assassination plot? Or is he wearing it for a different reason? Jaden swallowed a bite but gave no indication. I heard you lived with the knight marrying the Baller Republic before. It seems that she did the right thing. Sarah glanced at Sebastian. You think so? Elise shook her head. But she lost her title, her lands, and now will live a dull life as the wife of a soldier. Claudia's lips pressed together in a firm line. I hardly think wondering if the love of your life will come back alive or dead every waking moment would be a dull existence, sister. Painful, perhaps, but never dull. Sarah nodded. I think she did the right thing marrying her true love. Shouldn't the fact that she gave up her title and traded it for life with him show the depth of her love? Sebastian stirred his food contemplatively. Instead, our society views it as a foolish act of two young people who know no better. He was thinking of his own elopement with Rosabella. Sarah would never be free of her ghost if she married him. When I marry him. Oof, not if. Well, I think Victoria was not thinking straight. If your true love's not at your station or higher, find another one. Elise took a little bite of the spicy fried vegetables. Her eyes widened and she swallowed too quickly. You rarely get a chance at true love twice. Sebastian commented after a long bite. But if you do, well, nothing else matters. Marcia began in a quiet voice. I served as a battlefield nurse when my youth had allowed such rambunctious activities. I weep when I think of the terrors our men go through in defending our borders. I'm glad the knight found such a lovely and capable woman as Victoria shares life with. Capable? Mashka must know Victoria's a spy. Am I the only one that didn't know she was a spy? Tarek squeezed Hermashka's hand. I fear the fall of our countries within the next planetary rotation unless someone takes immediate action. Kern grunted. I agree, immediate action is necessary. Now if only we can get the other highborns and noble people to agree with us and forget the silly business about rules. What happened to the blood oath of just keeping your word? If our countries work together, we would have much greater chance of success. We must stop bickering with each other and join forces to fight the actual enemy. Kern spoke the words by rote. The endless repetition had worn away the passionate energy that had once been behind them. Please, let's not ruin this lovely evening with talk better left for the halls. Sebastian's words held a patronizing tone. I'm sure there'll be plenty of time later. A moment of leaden silence passed. The Lord Ambassador and her Frothco shared a look. If they had eaten at the mineralite table, the clink of forks and knives on the plates would have filled the silence. But the flatbread did not make a sound on the clay plates. Tarek wiped his face and stood. Kern, we should excuse ourselves and prepare for the next session. Kern nodded. I believe you have the librarians bringing the books to your study. Sarah dropped the last bite of her flatbread and reached to plug at his sleeve as he walked seat. Wait, Frothco, I must speak with you. I will catch up with you. Tarek dismissed Kern and motioned towards the empty parlor. She stumbled to her feet and entered the parlor, waiting for her Frothco to close the door behind them. Tarek smiled down at her. It's been ages since you tugged at my sleeve to get my attention. What is bothering you? Her father had so much to deal with, she would be quick and explain what she had learned about the assassination. Nothing more. How long has Big Victoria been your spy? Sihara groaned at herself. Why can't I keep it together? Tarek's face pinched, and he cleared his throat. If you're afraid that I used her to spy on you, you needn't worry. She's a genuine friend. Perhaps more than any of the other friends. Sarah crossed her arms. He had neatly avoided her question. Tarek rubbed his chin. I had hoped to keep you out of the darker side of politics, but I see it is no use. Sarah softened. I understand you want to protect me, but I'm in the thick of it now, and I wish I knew the right thing to do. Tarek's eyes snapped to her face. What happened? Sarah sat down by the dying fire. Victoria came to me after the session. She overheard Lord Neron planning the assassination of the king with the Mineralite sorority movement. My Abari's black heart. Tarek had never used the goddess of death's name in vain, but she followed. Yes, but I don't think the Mineralites saw her face, and I helped her get to the servants' hall, so I think she escaped her pursuers. Sarah almost didn't want to tell him the worst part, but she had to get it out or some lord or highborn would just blindside him. She told me to go to the king's guard, but they didn't believe me. The guard told me not to make accusations about your political rivals. I couldn't back it up. Sarah, look at me. Tarek sat down across from her. You did the right thing. They're fools if they don't believe you. Sarah nodded weakly, debating if she'd include the rest of the story. I can't hide anything from you, can I? Sarah rubbed her wrist. Tarek chuckled. No, not even what Cecilia bought me for my birthday. I'm surprised you remember that, Sarah smiled. I couldn't think of anyone else to turn to. I told Jaden, but he said he couldn't do anything about it. He sent a letter to the King's Guard to back up my claim, but that was it. Sarah grunted. Well, your instincts were close. Next time bring it to me or Kern. We will sway in the court and the ear of the king. Bothco, he knows Victoria's your spy. Tarek patted her hand. I'm not surprised. If nothing else, Jaden is well informed. I was foolish in thinking I could keep you out of the spy craft. I fear I left you vulnerable to the machinations. Sarah wrapped him in a hug, his gray stubble tickling her neck. We have time now. Tarek laughed. You're planning a wedding. I'm trying to forge an alliance between two very different countries. Perhaps after all this is settled, I can help you understand. Sarah mumbled in agreement. There would always be a disaster for her father could have fixed, so she would just have to learn spycraft on her own. And fast. Ozone permeated the air of the meeting hall, and the windows ran with moisture. The flames of the torches wavered, burning brightly and reaching towards the elementee. There was a charge of lightning in the air, and Sarah's poor frazzled hair didn't take it well. None of this surprised her. Her people felt threatened. The glowing, activated power stones around the necks of the Mineralites did not come as much of a shock either. Rafathko had his element under control, and Kern had not given in to the temptation of activating his stone. Will the Mineralite supporting movement try to kill the king today? Or the king's guards? Sarah tried to calm her thoughts as the Grand Admiral Gunter ascended the steps to the side of the raised platform. Settling his notes on the new podium, the Admiral looked hard at the nobles and highborns sitting and standing before him. In the past moon, 1,260 Mineralites were killed by Animalians. 159 Mineralites were killed by other Mineralites. And Elementi only killed 48 Mineralites. He spoke in a factual manner that drove home the bleakness of his words. Sarah stopped for a second. Sarah's heart stopped for a second. How can we trust each other when we're still killing each other? You may go into this alliance thinking once we win the war, we can continue our disagreements. The Admiral stopped, squinting at his notes as if they were a lieutenant who had spoken out of turn. He shook his head and placed both hands on the edge of the podium. I am not one to mince words, no matter how much some people want me to. It isn't in my nature, so I will be honest with you all. He took a deep breath. This childish and foolhardy bickering between our countries has weakened us to the point where the Animalians have overtaken many of our borders. It is our own fault this war has lasted as long as it has. The Grand Admiral Gunter leaned closer. This has left us with only one choice, and you know I would not lie to you. I would not tell you it is worse than it is, nor would I choose to embrace these men, if I did not know it is our only hope. His face grew blue as he tried to regain control of his emotions, but failed. We are forming an alliance. he continued in a lower voice, and I will be really, painfully honest with you. I don't care if you want to be a part of it or not. Sign the document, or walk over the border and see how your new masters treat you. With that, the Grand Admiral left most of the jaws on the ground, regardless of their country of origin. Jaden cleared his throat and whispered to Sihara, "Well, that's going to be a tough act to follow. I can only hope everyone takes his words to heart. Zero can only dream of having the same freedom to speak her mind. If the Grand Admiral's performance intimidated the Honorable Hector Pavia, he didn't show it." He set his notebook on the podium and nodded to the Admiral. "Your commitment to this alliance is much appreciated, Grand Admiral." He turned to the crowd with a reassuring smile. "Those who may feel intimidated by his words, take heart. There are few things that can stop a mineralite that wants something. If they want to work together, well, I say we let them." The comment earned a chuckle from a few of the Elementi. The soldier seemed to be the complete opposite of the Grand Admiral. While Gunter led with an iron fist, Hector seemed more like Sihara's grandfather. Hector grew somber. In the past moon, 67 Elementi died because of the mineralites. But only 38 of those deaths were purposeful. The rest were the result of their madman's creations. The same moon, the Animalians have slaughtered 4,574 Elementi. Creator, help us. Tears formed in Sarah's eyes, and she bit her cheek to keep them from falling. She knew people died out there on the front lines, but she never asked how many. Those were fathers, husbands, brothers, and sons. More than 4,000 mothers, wives, and sisters would be crying themselves to sleep, never to see their loved ones again. Sarah lost the battle against her tears. Jaden offered her a handkerchief. Hector raised his voice above the cries of the crowd. "If we do not form this alliance soon, we will lost 2 entire generations. We must fight our real enemies, the ones out there taking more lives we speak, not our potential allies in this room. We will not undo murders. We must forgive, or else your hatred will destroy everything we hold dear." Hushed conversations and the shuffling of paper joined the discordant murmurs of the crowd as the Elementi spoke with one another, and the mineralites passed secret messages. Maybe, just maybe, all the lost Elementi and mineralite lives would not be in vain. "I call to the podium the Honorable Elias of the Balar Republic," Rafalco said, directing Victoria's husband to step up to the podium. Sarah had missed him before. She almost didn't want to hear what he had to say, but for the sake of those who had passed, the least she could do was listen and feel, to mourn them, to mourn their suffering. "You may not know me, and for the Merrillites I will explain my position and how I came to learn the facts which I will share with you. As an honorable knight of the Balar army, I command my own troop of soldiers and answer to the Balar general." Elias took a deep, shuddering breath. "Many of you have never met an Animalian. They are faster than us, every sense heightened, as if they have all the extrasensory mineralite power stones: sight, hearing, agility." Mineralites shuffled in their seats. "They are capable of incredible depravity. Their gods demand it, in fact. They do not hold compassion or mercy in a high regard as we do. They inflict suffering with disgusting..." Elias cleared his throat. "They enjoy the suffering they cause." "And how is it that the Balar army... How is the Balar army keeping the Animalians from overtaking the Republic exactly?" Elias stared into the distance. "We have become savage. For every strike, we strike back 10 times harder, but it is getting more difficult as we lose many soldiers with every ambush." Elias covered his face, his voice roughed. "The thing that I have seen, no man should see. I have lost far too many good men to them. Every hour, every minute we spend debating this alliance is another second that a good man dies. They are monsters. And if we don't stop them, every single man, woman, and child led to us will suffer in horrible ways." "Thank you, Honorable Elias. I think we shall have the information we need." Taj Tarek gestured for him to step down. Lord Gustav of the House Priam raised his hand, and Kern nodded for him to speak. "A most convincing, speech." Lord Gustav pursed his lips. "This soldier has failed to mention that he is the husband of a close family friend of the Taj. I'm not sure we can trust his testimony, however moving." Tarek stood up, an almost imperceptible crackle of lightning rolling through his cloak. Elias raised his hand for the Taj to stop, wiping away a tear. "While I find your willingness to defend me admirable, Taj, I think I can speak for myself in that regard. Yes, my wife is the former Sihara Victoria, a friend of the Taj family." He took a deep breath. "The only reason I'm here instead of on the front lines is because her family wished to personally explain to me that I'm the reason she has lost all of her land inheritance. There are no other soldiers here to tell you what they've seen and what they live through every day, wondering if the animal killed them next. Does that answer your question satisfactorily, Lord Gustav? West asked with crisp and disdain. I'm sure you have your own Mineralite soldiers who can tell you their side of the story. We do not have a Mineralite soldier here. Then you're going to have to take my word for it. A Mineralite noble wearing a blue cloak stood, and 7 Mineralites from the crowd pulled handkerchiefs over their faces and jumped over the barrier. Green crystal flowed out from their indestructible power stones and covered their entire bodies. The rogue Mineralites grabbed the first elementy they could lay their hands on and pressed a dagger to their throats. The king's guard appeared from thin air, surrounding the king. They aimed and rightly hesitated. If they shot at the men with the indestructibility power stones, the bullets would ricochet, killing others. Mikhail unsheathed his curved short sword, pushing Sihara and her Majka behind him. Jaden activated his own indestructibility power stone. He positioned himself in front of his Majka and Seska's. Sihara covered her mouth and her heart thudded in her ears. Up on the stage, her Favko called upon his element, a bolt of lightning wriggling in his fist. The Minerite nobility leapt to their feet, ready to engage the new enemy that had presented itself, but they too paused. The Elementi halls became home to every element as the Elementi fumed over their captured comrades. Speak your demands. King Dresden's voice held a dark edge that made Sihara pray. She never had the king's ire directed at her. The Count in the blue coat spoke for the group of troublemakers. Cease entertaining this pathetic idea of coexistence, and we'll allow them to live. Or, if they would prefer, we'll put them out of their misery so they don't have to die at the hands of the Animalians. We'll gladly oblige. King Dresden considered their words as one as would reflect on a fine line. Speak your master's name, and I will allow you to live. Death would be preferable to being a traitor, the Count snarled. Can you not see that is what you are doing? The king pleaded, and Sihara willed the men to see reason. Surrender the hostages, or I will have no choice but to order your death. There will be no surrender. You want us to work with the Elementi, to share with them everything that makes us great. What happened to the Mineralites being the best and true conquerors of the world? The Senkens started this. Instead of punishing them, we got comfortable with inferior people living among us. The Count glared at Jaden. Both Kern and Jaden returned his gaze without flinching. The king's body went stiff at their words. The silence blanketed the room in a heavy curtain. Movement felt nearly impossible. Sarah's breath strained, every muscle tensed. Then you give me no choice. King Dresden spoke the words, oh, so softly. Kill the traitors. Her Father directed his bolt of lightning to the traitor closest to the stage. The room erupted into chaos. The Elementi and Mineralites climbed over the rows of seats into the arena in the center. The orange trails of light drew Sihara's eyes to the speedsters as they zipped in and out of the melee, disarming the traitors. Fire from the torches danced in the hands of fire controllers, making the traitors scatter. Gravity defiers leapt into the air and dive-bombed the traitors, flying the captive Elementi to a safer distance away. The sacred meeting hall turned into a battlefield as Mineralite nobility and Elementi highborn fought side by side against the traitors. Sihara covered her eyes. She couldn't watch this violence unfold. The clash of weapons and cries of battle eventually quieted. Is that all of them? King Dresden asked. All the traitors are dead, Your Highness. Admiral Gunter replied. Sihara opened her eyes and wished she hadn't. At the expense of 3 Elementi highborn. The king sighed and deactivated his power stone. I cannot in good conscience tolerate this kind of prejudice in my court. It is the poison that kills a society, making each person rotten at the core. He gestured to the death and destruction around him, and this is what happens when you resort to violence instead of trusting in the result of these deliberations. Let us take the rest of the day to mourn the loss of these fine men. Tomorrow, we will continue. Not allow their lives to be lost in vain. Mikhail touched Sihara's shoulder. The battle's over, Tasha. We must leave. These talks are no place for you anymore. Sihara rushed out of the room, certain she would stain the floors with this morning's meal. And that is the end of chapter 14. If you think things are going to be slowing down, buckle up and get ready for chapter 15, The Dance of Daggers. Jaden and the Scarlet Society must protect the king from hidden assassins during the dance. Hidden assassins and secret passageways. Join us next week for chapter 15.